What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's my watch list for Game Week 24, so I'm going to go through some of the players that I've got my eye on for the upcoming weeks. Now, the reason I'm showing you my team, first of all, is to try and explain why I've picked the players I have for this video. I think in Game Week 24, a lot of people are going to look to roll the transfer into Game Week 25, partly because there's a blank Game Week, which makes some upgrades difficult. For example, Mitrovic has been hugely frustrating. I would love to sell him to Ivan Toney, but Toney doesn't play in 25, Mitrovic does, so there's no real need to make that transfer until 26 onwards. Likewise, there is a double game week in Game Week 25, but a lot of us are already tripled up on Arsenal, and the only other team that I'm really curious about possibly bringing more players in from is Liverpool. Now, at the time I'm recording, it's Monday morning, so I haven't seen them play against Everton. Maybe they'll actually perform well, who knows, maybe they'll just lose again. Either way, they've got Newcastle away in Game Week 24, so there's no rush to bring them in. You can see what happens against Everton and Newcastle, what happens with players returning from injury like Jota, Firmino and Van Dijk, and then just make your decision in 25 with two transfers. So I'm kind of in that position as well. I've also got Ederson, so I might be looking to make a goalkeeper switch sooner than a lot of people, and that is kind of why most of the players in this video are not necessarily for 24, they're probably from 25 onwards, right? So the first one is Alexis Mac Allister, and a lot of people are going to be looking at Brighton players quite soon because they've got the double in 27. I don't think it's completely out of the question to bring them in this week if you can bench them during Game Week 25. I might actually need to bring in the Brighton midfielder in 25 to fund another move and to have them in place for the double. So it might not actually be a wait until Game Week 27 for a lot of us. Now, for most people, you're just going to buy Mitoma or Solly March because obviously they've been doing really well recently, both for goals and assists, and they are probably the two that I would look at as well, but we already know about them. The reason I'm talking about Mac Allister is because he played as a number 10 in the last game against Crystal Palace. Now, he did blank, but he's not that much more expensive than Mitoma. He put up 7 shots in that game for 1.4 XG, which is extremely good. And as far as we know, Mac Allister is still their penalty taker as well. So that's just another thing that he has over the other players. Now, the thing we need to look out for is Adam Lallana, because when he is back fit, he will probably play in that position, and Mac Allister will go a little bit deeper. It's interesting because De Zerbi talked about Mac Allister after the World Cup and said that he could play further forward. And we saw how good he was closer to goal for Argentina. It just hasn't happened that much for Brighton. But if Lallana wasn't back for this week and there was talk that he was out for a little bit longer, then he could be someone to look at for the short term. Obviously, you'd want him up until Game Week 27, so Lallana would have to be ruled out for a little bit, but I don't think he's a player to completely write off because he's absolutely nailed on, and he's on penalties as well, and could take some other set pieces at times as well. We all remember that great goal he scored from a free kick actually a little bit long ago, kind of closer towards the start of the season, but there's definitely potential there. In general, for Brighton players, Mitoma is the one that I would look at. Like if we go back to the FPL screen, he's 0.1 million cheaper at 5.3. He may go up again before we get to kind of anywhere near Game Week 27, especially if he does well against Fulham. But he's done extremely well since the World Cup, right? He's absolutely nailed on, playing 90 minutes in most games. He's got 4 goals and 1 assist as well. So he is the main player I'd be looking at. And I think for some of you, if you've got to shift funds around in Game Week 25, you could bring him in and bench him. So for my team, it could be Fernandes out for Mitoma, and then I would use that money to upgrade Greenwood to another player to just overall make my squad better and have better players on the bench, because there will be more blanks upcoming as well. So Brighton players firmly on the watch list, not just attackers. I also like their defenders as well. Estupiñán is the one that I would choose because he's extremely attacking and also looks nailed on under De Zerbi. But obviously you've got Lewis Dunk if you want to go a little bit more now. But I just wanted to briefly mention Mac Allister, because if Lallana is ruled out a little bit longer, I think most people will still go for Mitoma or March because they'll be seen as more attacking, which is fair enough. And Mac Allister's underlying numbers, his XG and expected assists, aren't very good because he usually plays deeper. But if he's going to play further forward and on penalties and absolutely nailed, he could be one to look at. If you didn't think that Game Week 24 was going to be a little bit weird, let me introduce you to Jordan Pickford making it onto the watch list video. Now, as I said already, I'm in a slightly different position to a lot of you, where I've got Ederson in goal. He's been absolutely awful for me. And to be honest, I probably just need to downgrade that position to have a little bit more money to spend elsewhere. And Jordan Pickford Pickford is someone I'm looking at. Now, don't get me wrong. Anyone that's got Kepa, you're absolutely keeping him and you're not worrying about it whatsoever. And Kepa may well be the goalkeeper that I just bring in instead. But if I do need to make the downgrade for money, it may well be game week 25. And that just so happens to be the week that Everton have got a double game week, followed by Nottingham Forest away and Brentford at home, which isn't too bad. And they also play in game week 28 as well. And that's going to be a blank game week for a lot of teams that kind of make it through the next round of the FA Cup. Now, obviously, with Kepa, he's got Everton at home in game week 28, so that is the better fixture. And if we have a quick look at Chelsea players, their fixtures in general are pretty decent. I think a lot of people are going to be looking at Reece James, Sheila, João Felix, etc. So they've got Southampton this week. The only kind of issue for me, and I probably shouldn't worry about it for a long-term pick, is if I have to do Edison to Kepa in 25 when they've got Spurs away, that will just be a little bit annoying. But after that, the fixtures are really good. Leeds at home, Leicester away, Everton at home, like I said. Then they've got Villa, Wolves, Brighton. He probably is the one to go for, although he may blank in game week 22, whereas Jordan Pickford won't, because Everton and Crystal Palace are both out of the FA Cup. So this run is just a tricky period for Everton in that they've got Chelsea, Spurs and Man United. But outside of that, Fulham, Palace, Brentford, Forest and a double game week isn't too bad. Obviously, we need to kind of take a look at how Everton do against Liverpool, which is going to be another tough game for them. Obviously, they did really well against Arsenal already. And then I can also see how they do at Leeds at home. But if it does look like Sean Dyche is going to make them a much better defensive unit, I'm not saying they're going to be as good as Arsenal or Man City, etc. But if he can make them a lot better than they have been, for 4.4 million, for someone that makes an average of 3.75 saves per 90 minutes, Jordan Pickford could be a nice little differential against Kepa. Again, if you've got Kepa, no worries whatsoever. You are not selling him, and you can worry about game week 32 down the line. Maybe by that point we'll have all wildcarded. I do not know. But Jordan Pickford in the short term is someone I'm considering. The main worries for my team is I've already got Tarkowski. Now, he is only 4.2 million. Most of the time he's going to be on the bench, but until I can deal with Ake, I'm actually going to have to probably play him this week. In game week 25, I wouldn't be massively concerned about having to play him and Pickford for Villa at home, Arsenal away, because one, it's a double game week, and two, it's a blank game week as well. So some of those kind of sacrifices we just have to make. After that, I would probably bench Tarkowski in most game weeks, so it wouldn't be double Everton defence for me every week. It would mostly be Jordan Pickford instead. But it is someone that I'm considering. Like I said, Kepa's probably the slightly better move. But when someone's got a double game week, when the other player has got Spurs away, it is a little bit tempting to go for him, especially when he's a bit of a save machine. And I'm expecting Sean Dyche to improve them quite considerably. Yes, that's right. All the pain and misery from owning Salah since the World Cup has not put me off potentially, and it is only potentially, buying a second Liverpool player for their double game week in game week 25. Now, if I wanted someone like Darwin Núñez, I would have to free up the funds from Bruno Fernandes, and it would take 2 transfers to do that. So I'm not going to do it in game week 24 because that would be for a hit. And ultimately, Newcastle away is a fairly tough fixture, so there's no real rush to bring them in. I can wait and decide in 25. But with fixtures of Palace away and Wolves at home, that's the kind of double game week that I would want to target with a lot of teams in the league, let alone Liverpool. And I know they've just lost 3-0 to Wolves, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but it's not enough to put me off. And the fixtures afterwards, Man United at home, that will be a little bit tougher, but I think Liverpool can score in that game. Then it's Bournemouth away, which is pretty good, and then potentially Fulham at home. Now, the issue is we won't know if that fixture is on until just before game week 26, but by buying a Liverpool player in 25, I would be hedging my bets that that game is on in 28, and if not, I can just sell Núñez whenever I need, either for someone with a double game week in 27, or I could just hold on to him and move him on in game week 28 instead. It might be that I end up using the free hit that week and I hold on to Núñez a little bit longer, but he wouldn't be coming in as a long-term pick necessarily. He would be as a bit of a punt for a double game week. And I am someone that likes to go for as many double game week players as is possible. Obviously, we've got a lot to deal with right now. Blank and double in 25, double in 27, blank in 28, etc. But Núñez is the kind of player that could go and get you a big haul over 2 fixtures, even if he has been fairly frustrating for a lot of you so far this season. I haven't owned him, so I don't have that kind of putting me off bringing him in. I think 8.7 million is a pretty good price. His underlying numbers still look really good, even though he hasn't scored a huge amount of goals in the league. Now, just on the Wolves 3-0 result, right? And the fact that Liverpool haven't been doing well recently, I do think, at least by the numbers, they've been a little bit unfortunate. Now, this is the Villa game that they had in game week 17, which is the last time they did really well. And obviously Salah got the goal and assist in that game. They put up 2.7 XG in that game, 2.2 against Leicester, 2 against Brentford in the game they lost 3-1. Only 1 against Brighton. I did watch that game in full. They were absolutely pathetic, to be fair. They put up 1.4 XG against Chelsea and 1.8 against Wolves. Now, I did add that up earlier. I think I've got it on my phone still. That's 11.1 XG that they've generated since the World Cup. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fixtures. I think that's all they've had. Because they haven't played Everton yet. So 11.1 XG in these 6 fixtures, but they've only scored 3 goals against Villa, 2 against Leicester, so that's 5, 1 against Brentford is 6, and nothing in the last 3 games. So they've generated 11.1 XG and only scored 6. If they keep generating that many chances, they are not going to continue this run of just not scoring. It will not happen. And I think what better time to start doing well, I mean, it could be this week against Everton. I haven't seen the game yet, but in game week 25 with 2 decent games. And the other thing for me, right, is I still think that is worth a punt. And because everyone else is so down on Liverpool players, that just makes me want to do it even more, because there won't be many times, possibly even for the rest of this season, because they've got a good fixture run coming up from game week 31 onwards, but from next season instead, there probably won't be a time when Liverpool players are just this low, where people just don't want them, they're looking to sell them, they don't want to buy them for a double game week. That might not happen again for a very long time. And it just makes me want to have that punt even more. It could well go wrong, but we've seen in the past, double game weeks are overrated. This team's not playing very well. XG doesn't matter. All these things come out. And in the end, it finds a way to kind of rectify itself. And again, what better way to get that massive differential than games against Crystal Palace and Wolves at home? And like I said, yes, they lost 3-0. Which is this game here. Wolves put up 2 XG and scored 3 goals. Liverpool put up 1.8 and scored 0. It's not very often they would lose 3-0 in that game. So that's why I'm tempted by someone like Darwin. The issues, of course, are that Jota is returning. He's back in training. He might even be in the squad for the Everton game. We'll see if he comes on. And then they've got Gakpo, Jota, Núñez and Salah for 3 spots. Now, they might well go back to a 4-4-2, have Jota on the left, Núñez and Salah up front, and someone on the right like Elliott. But obviously, Firmino could be back soon as well. So I think Núñez's minutes have been very good. That might start to drop, but that's just another reason to wait to make this transfer till game week 25. So like I said, it hasn't put me off. I do think, really quickly going back to these numbers, it does slightly put me off going for Trent, because these are not good. Like, they've put up good XG numbers. They're not putting up good expected goals conceded, partly because obviously Van Dijk has been out, but I'm a little less keen on getting Trent, and I think Darwin Núñez just fits my team better, because ultimately I'd love to upgrade this Greenwood spot. So Fernandes to Darwin Núñez for a double game week when a lot of teams are blanking, it just feels to me like it could make a lot of sense. But who knows? I'll watch the Everton game, I'll watch the Newcastle game. I'm not locked into this move, but I'm very tempted. Let me know down below if you think I'm crazy to be talking about McAllister, Pickford and Núñez. I would say normal content will resume, but the normal stuff, transfer tips, game week preview, team selection will be coming later on this week. Let me know what you think of these 3 players down below. How much has Liverpool's recent performances put you off buying them? Are you looking to get anyone? Are you at least keeping your options open? Leave a comment below. Give the video a like if you enjoyed it. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and I'll catch you again tomorrow.